Have you ever wondered if there's a secret to becoming a strong applicant? Whether you want to get into PT school or you want to become a physical therapy assistant and you're worried about how competitive it is, have you ever wondered, is there a secret? Is there something that people know that I don't know? Is there an advantage that other people have that I don't have? Maybe they have better grades than me. Maybe they're better at test taking than I am. Maybe they have experiences that are better than mine. Have you ever felt that? Have you ever felt like, man, I don't know? And because of that, it makes you nervous. It makes you second guess yourself. Sometimes you even consider having a backup plan. In this episode, we're going to talk about the one thing that you can do that will instantly set you apart from most, if not all, other applicants. And if you want to stand out, you want to get into PT school, you want to start your career, this is going to be extremely important. And it's something that's not talked about enough. Let's dive into it. But before I do so, my name is Joseph Googie. I am a physical therapist. I am also a PT school acceptance coach and one of the co-founders of Pre-PT Grind, where for years we've helped students get accepted into PT school. So if that's what you want, you're on the right page. And we've helped tons of students do exactly what you're trying to do. But for this episode, we're going to call it Don't Get Yourself Rejected. And the reason why I'm calling it that is because when students are coming to us for advice or help or guidance or coaching, they're usually asking questions like, okay, is my GPA high enough? Is my GRE score going to be good enough? Or can I get into schools that don't require the GRE? Or can I get in with a low GPA? Can I get in after getting rejected? Should I have a backup plan? Those are the types of questions that we typically get. And a lot of the reasons why those are the questions we get is because that's what most of us hear. That's what most of us are scared of. We're scared of our stats not being good enough and so on and so forth. The one thing we forget is that it starts with me. It starts with me. And one of the things, so we have a coaching program called the Accepted System. And one of the first things that we do, and it's always interesting because students are coming in with the questions I just showed you a few moments ago. And the first thing I say is like, no, we got to start with you. Like, you are it. If we don't address the things that are holding you back, the things that are making you anxious, the things that are making you get in your own way, this could end up backfiring big time. Okay. And so that's what I want to walk you through in this episode. And I want you to listen and ask yourself, how can I apply what is being shared in this episode? How can I apply that in my journey now? How can I apply it later on? Because everything from here on out starts with me, right? I can decide to blame fingers or blame other people. I can blame my professors for my classes being too hard. I can blame my situation life-wise for not being able to do things. I can blame the pandemic. I can blame whatever. I can point fingers, but at the end of the day, you have full control over yourself, over how you think, over how you take care of anything. Let's go through a few different things that we do with our clients to get them to take their power back. Because as a student, would you rather feel helpless or would you rather feel like you're in control? Most people would rather feel like they're in control. So let's talk through a few things that are going to help you regain control as an applicant. Does that make sense? So let's dive into it. So don't get yourself rejected. Ask yourself, before I'm dealing with stats, have I taken care of this and this, right? Am I where I need to be mentally? Am I locked in? And am I showing up as the type of applicant that will give me the best chance of getting into a school? Cool. So let's talk about you, right? How am I showing up? And this is actually something that we talk about during our masterclass when we teach students the entire framework of how we help our clients. But how am I showing up as a student? Because the way I show up usually either works for me or against me. And so there's 5 personality types, or there's 5 identities that pre-PTs typically have, and all 5 are not serving you. And so I'm going to walk you through those 5, and I want you to ask yourself, have I been showing up as that? And something that we share with our students is we say, as a pre-PT, as a student, we don't get what we want, which we all want to get into PT school. We all want to become a physical therapist. We don't get what we want. We get who we are, meaning that the way I show up is what allows me to make certain decisions that either work for me or against me, is what allows me to be resilient, is what allows me to take ownership when it's time, instead of pointing fingers, blaming everyone else, thinking woe is me, because that's a surefire way of quitting and giving up on yourself. And one of the big things that we say is, as a student, pay attention to this, as a student, the only way you do not become a physical therapist, the only way this dream of yours dies, is if you decide to quit, meaning that the power still rests with you. Is this making sense? So let's dive into these 5 types of pre-PTs and just ask yourself, have I been showing up as one of these 5? Because if I have, then it's time for me to at least ask myself, am I willing to decide, because it's something that you can decide to do, am I willing to decide to shift the way I'm showing up? And after you've decided that, I'm going to show you this sixth version that's going to work for you if you decide to start showing up as this sixth version of a pre-PT. I'll explain what I mean, but let's dive into it. So the first type of pre-PT is what we call a victim pre-PT, meaning that everything is against me. It doesn't matter how hard I try. It's always somebody else's fault or something else's fault, whether it's my circumstances, whether it's a professor, an advisor, it doesn't matter who it is. I'm always pointing fingers because I'm always a victim of my situation. So ask yourself, have you shown up as the victim? Maybe it's just life. Maybe it just feels like everything's falling apart. Usually when you're showing up as a victim, if someone asks you why you're stuck, you never start with yourself. You never say, I'm stuck because I don't know what to do about this. You start with, I'm stuck because of our finances, or I'm stuck because of this. It's always someone outside of you or something outside of you. If that's the case, then just be mindful that you might be showing up as a victim. Cool. So that's the first one. The second one is what we call the blind pre-PT. So this is a student that typically shoots in the dark. They're guessing, flat out guessing. They're usually getting advice from people that have never been down this path before. They're usually getting advice from whether it's family members, whether it's advisors who have never been physical therapists. And now you're getting help from someone that has literally never been in your shoes. So they're getting some list from the school of what they're supposed to tell you, but they can't help you from experience, meaning that when you're stuck, they're usually going to be the first person to tell you, hey, have a backup career, have a backup option, pick something else that's easier. And I could tell stories on end on how that works, but it steals your dream from you. But it's because we're blind. Like, we don't know what we're doing. We're guessing, we're shooting in the dark. So has that been the way you've been showing up? So cool. Number 3 is what we call the bare minimum pre-PT. So the bare minimum pre-PT, they're bare minimum on everything. Whatever the requirements are, bare minimum. Whatever expectations are, bare minimum. And what they give is what they get. Are you with me? So far we got what? Victim, we got blind, and then we got bare minimum. All right. So the fourth one is what we call a quick take, slow act pre-PT. So this is the person that's going to listen to this training and be like, oh, this was cool. Yeah, let me process it some more. Let me go listen to more trainings. Let me go listen to this. Let me go research this. So we're quick to take in information, but very slow to take action on it. Meaning that, well, another term for this is an information junkie, right? We're really good about taking in info, but we don't do anything with it, meaning it never serves us. The information you learn, even what you're learning right now, even what you're hearing right now, will not serve you until you act on it. Does that make sense? So if I'm a quick take, slow act, is that going to serve me if all I'm doing is taking in information, which creates information overload, which sometimes creates confusion because you're getting info from everywhere. But if I'm not doing anything with it, is that truly serving me? Yes or no? And the answer is no. And then the fifth one is the just-in-time pre-PT. So that's the one that applies just in time, submits stuff just in time. Everything is last minute / just in the nick of time. So they're never doing anything early, never doing things intentionally. They're just waiting to the last possible moment. They're usually applying as their friends are. They're the ones that are usually watching their classmates. Hey, are you guys already starting to submit on PTcast? Hey, are you guys starting to study for the GRE? Hey, are you guys? So that's the just-in-time pre-PT. So ask yourself, have I been showing up as any of those 5, right? Now, in our experience over the last 10 years of doing this, we've noticed that most people show up as at least one of those. Now, many times it's usually more than one. So sometimes it's all of them. Sometimes it's 2 of them, 3 of them. The thing that I want you to really lock in though, because remember, we're not going to be the quick take, slow act unless you decide to continue doing what you do. As you listen to this, ask yourself, am I going to keep showing up that way, or am I going to make a decision right now to shift the way I operate? Because if you're ready to make a decision, I'm going to show you a 6th type of pre-PT that if you start showing up as this type of pre-PT, it's game over. Because remember, the goal of this session is to show you that this starts with you. Don't get yourself rejected, right? Because the way I show up literally is connected to everything else that I do. It's connected to how I show up to retakes for classes. It's connected to how resourceful I am with the GRE and how I study, all the other stuff. Like, we can go on, but it starts with me. It starts with you, right? And so the 6th type, which is the one that you can't, let me preface it with this. Before I share with you what the 6th type is, this 6th type doesn't happen just on a whim. Like, the first 5 can happen naturally because I can be a victim pre-PT because I'm in a victim environment. I can become a blind pre-PT because I'm in a space where I don't have a lot of the right information. I can be bare minimum because that's what I know. I can be quick take, slow act because I'm always super cautious. I'm always super anxious about stuff. So though those things can happen by default, this 6th one, though, which is the one that will serve you, or at least it has served the students we've worked with, doesn't happen by accident. This one happens by decision, by choice, right? And so this is what we call the unchained pre-PT. So the unchained pre-PT is the exact opposite of every other pre-PT type that we just talked about. So the unchained pre-PT never blames anyone. They take full ownership of everything. Remember, this is a decision. Are you going to decide to not blame anyone and to actually take ownership of everything? They invest time and money into learning everything they can so that they do not guess. They do not guess. They do not guess. They do not guess. A lot of times ask yourself, am I guessing? Am I winging it? Am I just pulling info from what I may have seen or what I may have heard from other students? Or do I know for sure that I'm actually doing the best thing for myself in my journey? Am I actually doing the things that will stand out to the schools I'm applying to? Am I actually doing the things that will help me pick the best match schools? Because not all schools are the same, by the way. In fact, most rejections, and we don't have time to dive into this on this session, but most rejections are because students chose the wrong schools. Like we had a student who, before working with us, got rejected 4 years in a row simply because he chose the wrong schools. And after he started working with us 4 years in, then we were like, oh yeah, we picked the wrong schools. And we went through a process, found the right schools, and boom, got multiple acceptances, multiple. So go figure. But they invest time and money to make sure that they're not guessing. They go above and beyond. They act fast. They are not the quick take, slow act. They're the ones that are going to listen to a session like this and say, whoa, ooh, I need to go figure out which of the 5 I've been showing up as. And they're going to say, cool, what can I actively start doing to not blame other people, to take ownership, to not be a quick take, slow act, to take whatever next steps are appropriate for you. That is what an unchained pre-PT does. And the reason why this is powerful and the reason why this is anchored on whether or not you will get accepted, whether or not you will be successful, is because becoming a physical therapist is not a walk in the park. If it was, then you wouldn't be on this train. And if it was, if it was easy, everybody would do it. It's competitive. It's competitive. So what happens is when it's so competitive, when we have obstacles and struggles, we start to second guess everything. We start to fear that things are going to fall apart. We start to focus on the worst case scenario, which creates anxiety, right? And so now we're like, oh, like we feel helpless. And so what if, think about it for a second. What's the point in focusing on a backup plan if that will not fulfill me? Just sit in it for a second. If physical therapy is truly what you want, just think about it. If physical therapy is truly what you want, then just imagine that you picked a backup career, just another career, just whatever career that would be. Just imagine for a second. What would that look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, being in a career that does not fulfill you? Is that how you want to spend the one life you have? Or would you rather do everything in your power to give yourself the best chance possible to get into a career that is aligned with what you're looking for? Are you seeing why wasting energy on focusing on the worst case scenario or wasting energy on backup plans, can you already start to see how that starts to work against you? We literally had a student who the first time they applied, they got rejected and they basically felt like maybe this won't work out. And they chose to not apply again. And they went down a different path. They got a master's degree in a different profession. They just went down a whole different path for 4 years. They went down a different path. 4 years in, they realized they still wanted to be a physical therapist because they realized that they were not fulfilled by this other path that to most people looks very successful, but they realized, no, I truly want to be a physical therapist. And then that's when they found us and we worked through their situation and they got accepted into PT school after applying with us just 1 year. But that's the reality, right? If this is what you want, then let's go for it. And the thing that most of us spend the least amount of time doing is working on ourselves, the person that's anchored to everything. And my question to you would be, are you, without knowing it, getting yourself rejected? And are you going to change that narrative today? Because if you change it, it's game over. I'm telling you right now. There's so many students that have gotten in after whatever you feel is getting in your way. Low GPA, it's happened. Standardized exams, it's happened. Fear of graduating with a whole lot of debt. There's always a solution for whatever fear you have, right? The question is, are we asking the right questions? And if we're not, then that's where things can backfire. Does that make sense? So that's it. I hope this was helpful. I hope this got you to think just about your situation and obviously what you have control over, because you truly do have a lot of control over this, but it starts with controlling yourself and what's going on in here and in here. And if we can do that, then man, now we can start having some really cool conversations. That's when now we can start diving into the other stuff, right? The GRE, the GPA, how to stand out to a program, how to pick the right schools. schools. That's when we can dive into that stuff. But before we do that, it starts with you. So are you getting yourself rejected without realizing it? And that's it. So I hope this was helpful. If this was valuable, number one, please share this out with someone else that you believe would value this session. Number two, please be sure to like and subscribe. And then number three, if you're like, yo, I want more value, more help, more resources, go to preptguides.com. We got you. We have free resources, free guides that'll help you get started, help you know exactly how to stand out as an applicant, and so much more. And that's it. Have a blessed one. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.